government has given a lot of money and credit to people. Well, no surprise, that's leading to a lot of inflation, okay? Inflation takes buying power away from people. And it also means that then there's going to be higher interest rates, and that's going to squeeze people. I think there are three big forces to keep your eye on. And when you see them in their cycle, then it's clear. First, are you earning more than you are spending? Well, you can have both. I want them to look at it as the country, but the country's nothing more than the aggregate of the people. And so when you look at those three forces, I want to make sure that they're clear and you could align them up and you could see where you are. Is the country earning more than it's spending and building savings? Or is it spending more than it is earning and creating debt? Because one man's debts are another man's assets. And when somebody is holding those assets and they're producing a lot more of that money and debt, they go down in value. Money goes down in value as they produce it to produce that buying power. And then that gets people bad returns, it produces a higher amount of inflation, and it produces bad returns for holding debt or bond. So in other words, cash or bonds, and then people get out of cash and bonds, and that produces rising interest rates while there's rising inflation, and that produces stagflation. So I want them to get the mechanics of that because that's happening now. You could see it. This is not controversial. We are producing a lot of debt. We're spending a lot more than we're earning. And as a result, they're printing a lot of money. And the printing of a lot of money creates a lot of inflation. And with that inflation, then nobody wants to, cash is trash. You don't want to hold cash. And that causes rates to rise. And that's one of those three factors. So you can see it happening. And you could also see the cycle of it as shown in the book. The second force that is dealing with is the internal conflict, how you are with each other. Are you operating cohesively, common mission, and moving in the right direction? The system working? Or are you at each other's throats? Is the system threatened? Because history's shown when the causes that people are behind are more important to them than the system is in jeopardy. And that is a risky situation. It's a risky situation because it produces disorder and it can produce a form of civil war. And at those times, when you have that, you see greater and greater polarity. In politics, it shows up at greater and greater populism of the left and populism of the right. And populists want to fight for their side. They're not moderates. Moderates want to work together to try to find a compromise that's best for the whole. Populists appeal to their crowd by saying, I am fighting for you. And they will fight each other. And that fight can be at the threat of the system. So in history, for example, we saw 4 democracies in the 1930s choose to become dictatorships as one side fights to the other because they become so disorderly. And we have a system right now that you could see that it is possible in elections that neither side might accept losing. And so the system becomes in jeopardy. And you see that the moderates leave the system. You can't be moderate. You have to pick a side and fight. And so you see this in the French Revolution. There were moderates in the early part of it that recognizing that there were problems and wanting to work together. The moderates got guillotined. The polarity began. The same was true in the Russian Revolution. The same was true in the Chinese Revolution, the Cuban Revolution, and so on. Those polarity gets greater and greater as there's a greater intensity to fight. And that is the internal piece. And so you could see where we are in that internal piece right now. I mean, there is a great polarity, and you're seeing that lead to changes in where people live. They're moving to different areas, not just because of tax reasons, but because of differences in values. And so that kind of, you can see it today happening, these things, but you also can see the arc of them in the book because it measures statistics. It shows these things happening. So when you have financial problems and you have this kind of polarity and you have a bad time, you have a lot of fighting internally. So imagine where we are in the economic cycle, where they have given, the government has given a lot of money and credit to people. They've put it out. Well, no surprise, that's leading to a lot of inflation. Inflation takes buying power away from people. And it also means that then there's going to be higher interest rates, and that's going to squeeze people. And so that makes that wealth gap and that wealth issue more difficult. So that's where we are now. And that also is risky because it threatens the value of the dollar.